Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Criminolly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today I'm doing the I Know What You Read Last Summer book tag. So this tag was originally created by a couple of booktubers who I believe are Spanish, Evita Lecturitas and Biblioteca de Blue Rose. So apologies if I've butchered the pronunciation there. I first saw it on the channel Goddess of Gore. So Vix from Goddess of Gore did it. She translated the prompts and she tagged Pastori Time and Bert, when he did the tag, Bert from Pastori Time tagged me. So thank you very much first to Vix for creating or translating this tag into English, and then to Bert for tagging me, and also to the two original creators. I think it's a really fun tag and it covers both books and movies, which gives it a little bit extra. So there are 13 questions, so I'll go through those for you now. As the title would suggest, they're kind of themed around slasher movies and I Know What You Did Last Summer in particular. There's some really fun questions here. So first question then is Final Girl, a book with a strong female protagonist. So I've just read one that I thought was absolutely fantastic. Really enjoyed it. So it's called Fancy Anders Goes to War, Who Killed Rosie the Riveter. It's the first in the series. There's at least one other book in the series which I'm definitely going to read. And it's by Max Allan Collins. So this is a World War II set mystery novel about this young woman, Fancy Anders, who's really feisty, whose dad runs a detective agency, and she wants to become a detective, and she manages to kind of pick up a case where she's supposed to be like advising and supporting the police basically, but she ends up actually investigating it, and she ends up working in a bomber factory, trying to discover who's committed a murder there. It was just really fun, and she was a really fantastic heroine, just really feisty, really plucky, very humorous at times, but really entertaining to read. So very much looking forward to reading the next book in that series. Question 2 is Popcorn, a book you couldn't put down or stop reading. So there are a couple that came to mind here. One is Birdman by Mo Hayder, which I did a buddy read of recently with Alice from the channel Alice in the Giant Bookshelf. And both of us were saying during that buddy read, when you do a buddy read, you quite often say, right, we're going to read the next 5 chapters and then we'll pause and talk about them. So we were following that way of doing buddy reads with this, that method. And we kept on saying, I couldn't stop. I had to just keep reading. It was too good. So that was absolutely fantastic. The other one I really enjoyed, which isn't a traditional, you think of not being able to put a book down for something that's a thriller. So another book I read recently that I really struggled to put down was The Blackboard Jungle by Evan Hunter. So Hunter is, my favourite author anyway, so maybe no surprise, but this was just so gripping. So the story of a teacher in a kind of rundown school in the States in the 50s, just trying to do the right thing by the kids, but fantastically gripping. Loads of really good plot lines running through it and just really kept you turning the pages. I had a fantastic time with it. Next question then is Ticket. Name the book that introduced you to your favourite genre. So this for me would be At the Mountains of Madness and Other Tales, I think it was called, by H.P. Lovecraft. So this was I think published by a publishing house called Granada in the UK in the 80s. And I picked up the copy of it. So a friend of mine at school had recommended Lovecraft. And I picked up a copy of it and was immediately gripped. And it was my first taste of horror, really. But immediately sucked me in. I immediately enjoyed the experience of reading horror, the experience of reading creepy stuff. And, Lovecraft can be deeply creepy. It just sucked me in and it quickly became something that I just felt like I had to keep on going back to, I guess. So, I graduated from Lovecraft to King and then from King to, dozens of other authors. But yeah, that Lovecraft volume is definitely the one that started me on the path. Question 4, Outdoor Cinema. Name a book that has the best book to film adaptation. So for this one, there's loads, aren't there? People always say, it's a bit of a cliche amongst book lovers that the book is always better, but it's not true. The book is often better, and the book often gives you something that the movie doesn't. But there are movies that are better than the books they're based on, and I can think of a few, but one that jump to mind for this one is Die Hard. So I think Die Hard is such a well-crafted movie. It's so well-paced. Bruce Willis is, fantastic in it. The direction of the action by John McTiernan is peerless. I think that's when he was at the top of his craft, and it's just got so many quotable lines, so many memorable situations. Absolutely fantastic. The book it's based on, which is called Nothing Lasts Forever and is by an author called Roderick Thorpe, is good. And a lot of Die Hard does come from that book. So a lot of the scenes, there are particular scenes that you'll remember in Die Hard, like the bit in the elevator shaft where he's, trying to climb up and stuff like that are lifted directly from the book. And the overall plot definitely is as well. The one big difference, and I think this is something they did right in the movie, is in the book, the hero is older, so he's like in his 50s, I think. And it's his daughter who works in the office building, not his wife. And he's also just really incredibly misanthropic. He's just a real grumpy old bastard, basically. And I think that the Bruce Willis portrayal of I've forgotten his name now. That's terrible, isn't it? Of the cop guy, John, whatever his surname is, just works. It's just fantastic, and he's a much more likeable character than the character in the book, and therefore you want him to succeed in a way you don't necessarily want the character in the book to succeed. Right, next one then is outdoor cinema. Oh, sorry. So there's actually two other prompts for this one. So the second one is a film that has a better sequel than the original. So again, there are a few here. The one I'm going to go for is Aliens. So I think Aliens is just a fantastic film. I think it's probably the best sequel ever made, because it takes the original and manages to continue the storyline whilst feeling like a completely different kind of film. So it's recognisably set in the same universe. It's got Ripley as the same central character, and it all makes perfect sense. The way they set the film up in that first half hour or so, which is very, very slow before the action kicks in, it all makes perfect sense in terms of the logic of the logic of the universe that was created in Alien. I think continues fantastically in Aliens. But it's just such a great movie. And Alien, I think, is a very good film, but I don't think it's a great film. I personally think Ridley Scott is overrated as a director. I think he can be a bit wanky, to be honest with you. I think he's a very patchy director. Some of his films are great. Some of them are, I think, pretentious, and some of them are just bad. And I think that the ones that are really good I think that bucket is a much smaller bucket than the other buckets. In fact, it may just be Alien. So yeah, I think Alien is a really good film, but I think Aliens is better. James Cameron also clearly, as a director, has been somewhat patchy over the years. But Aliens and the first two Terminator films are both fantastic, or all fantastic even. And then the final prompt for this outdoor cinema section is name a scary movie that you recommend. So when I think about scary movies, so not just horror movies, but scary movies that scared me, the one that immediately leaps to mind is A Tale of Two Sisters, which is a Korean horror film from fairly early on in the kind of wave of Asian horror movies getting shown in cinemas and getting popular in the West. Came out, I think, not long after The Ring, which I think was the first really big one. My wife and I went to see Tale of Two Sisters at the cinema, and we were literally like shrinking down in our seats. At one point, there's a scene where the family in the film are having dinner, which is just incredibly tense and scary, and just it nearly destroyed us. It nearly destroyed us, seriously. Right, moving on then. So next one then, question 5. A movie that you are too scared to watch. So I think there aren't many films I would that are supposed to be scary that I would consider myself scared to watch. But I do hate like jump scares. The modern trend for like jump scares that feel terrifying at the time, and then 2 minutes later you've forgotten about. I really dislike. I think it's cheap filmmaking. But what I am increasingly finding is despite the fact that, one of the big things I'm doing on the channel is reading really disturbing books, is I don't like watching really disturbing films. And I used to, when I was kind of, in my teens and 20s, I definitely used to gravitate to that kind of thing. But, more and more nowadays, I don't. I find them very difficult to watch. And I don't watch a lot of movies at all anymore. So I certainly don't gravitate to watching films that are going to make me feel uncomfortable, when I do watch a film. One that comes to mind as a film I have, I suppose, deliberately not watched for several years now, is Irreversible, the Gaspar Noé film. So I bought a DVD copy of that. I don't know how long ago it came out, but I think I'd probably bought a DVD copy of that more than 15 years ago. And I was clearing out the attic the other day and found a box of DVDs up there, and one of them was Irreversible, still shrink wrapped. So I have very deliberately, despite having bought a copy of that film, never got the guts up to watch it. So I guess that would be my choice for this one. Okay, question 6, Summer Loving, a book recommendation for the summer. So it's a really obvious choice, but it's a really lovely book, so I'm going to go with it. And that's a summer book by Tove Jansson. So Tove Jansson, creator of the Moomins, the children's books, but also wrote adult books. And a summer book is just a really lovely book about this girl going to spend the summer with her grandmother who lives on this island. And it's just one of those books that really captures the joy of being a child in summer and having freedom, and particularly being a child out in nature in the summer. So yeah, a truly lovely book, which I definitely recommend. Okay, question 7, Scythe Assassin, a villain you'd love to interview. So I did struggle a bit with this one, but I think possibly my favourite fictional villain is the character The Deaf Man from the 87th Precinct series by Ed McBain. So that's a long-running series of mystery novels, and The Deaf Man is a character who crops up and I think he's in about 5 or 6 of the books, and always has these incredibly complex schemes, which the police always manage to thwart, but sometimes much more through chance than through any skills as investigators. But he's a really interesting character, slightly psychopathic at times, but also just clearly a genius, but a genius who gets so wrapped up in his own intelligence that sometimes that's his downfall. So I think he'd be an interesting person to interview. Question 8 then, The Group of Friends, a book with the worst friend group. So for this one, I'm going to go with Hog by Samuel Delaney, which features this appalling group of guys going around doing appalling things, basically. I'm not going to say any more than that because the book just makes me feel ill to even think about it. But yes, the main group, so Hog's band of guys in Hog being the main character in the book. Question 9 then, end of course, your last DNF. So I don't DNF books that often. The last one I DNF'd was a book called Faithless by Hunter Shea, which I was really looking forward to. And I've read at least one other Hunter Shea book that I thought was pretty good. It was like a fun kind of creature feature type one. But other people have read some of it, people whose opinions I recommend have read some of his books and really raved about them. So this was one I'd got from NetGalley, and it's about a guy who's a priest whose family get killed at the start of the book, and he then goes to stay in this kind of house, and you can't figure out if it's haunted or not. And the opening of the book was incredible, like one of the tensest things I've read for ages. But then you just got like 100 pages of self-pity as this guy whose family have died gets increasingly miserable, and you can't figure out if he's being haunted or not. And I just got bored of it, to be honest with you. Right, question 10. Summer Party, a book with the worst party in it. So for this one, I'm going to go with the 120 Days of Sodom by the Marquis de Sade, which just has this appalling group of reprobates, not dissimilar really to Hogg's band of guys, hauled up in a chateau doing horrible things to each other and other people. So yeah, that's definitely the worst party I've read recently. Okay, question 11. We have a character that talks too much. So for this one, I'm going to go with Jerome, who's the young black guy in the Bill Hodges books by Stephen King. So I don't know that he talks that much, but whenever he talks, he's incredibly clumsily written and slightly offensive. So Stephen King, I think, is often I think Stephen King is well intentioned in terms of his portrayal of race and black characters, but it so often feels like he doesn't quite get it right, and he definitely doesn't get it right with Jerome. And I found Jerome quite a difficult character to read as a result. I really like the Bill Hodges books overall, but some of the scenes with Jerome really made me cringe because of the way he talks to the other characters. Okay, question 12 then. Is Cabin in the Woods the best setting for a book? So for this one, I really did struggle because I'm not big on, like world building and things like that. In fact, my video yesterday was about how I don't like world building. But so I think for this one, I'm going to go with The City, which is the fictional city at the heart of the 87th Precinct books by Ed McBain, which I've already mentioned in this tag. So my favourite series of books ever, and The City, which is very much based on New York. Is not New York and does have something of an identity of its own. And over the 55 books in the series, it really does feel like a character, as well as the cops do. It's just really fantastically well done. So yeah, I'm going to go with the City from the 87th Precinct books. And then the final question then is Friday the 13th, a book that traumatised you. So for this one, I was going to go with 1974 by David Peace, the first of his Red Riding books. So this is a crime novel set in the north of England in the 70s. And I think the reason it disturbed me so much, or traumatised me so much, was because I wasn't expecting it to be that disturbing. I'd heard it was a really good book, but I didn't expect it to be as bleak and horrific and just traumatising as it is. So that was a book that has really stuck with me. Sometimes when you read a book that is going to be disturbing, that can take the edge off it a bit. And I just had no idea with this book how horrible it was going to be. So yeah, that's definitely my pick for this question. So all that remains then is for me to tag some people. So I'm going to tag 3 people who I'd be interested to hear do this tag. So I'm going to tag Roy from the channel Roy Reads Anything, MJ from Reading This Life, and Michael K. Vaughan. So I'd be really interested to see what you make of this tag, particularly interested to hear your movie answers. So I hope you found that interesting. Do let me know if you've got your own answers to any of these questions. And as always, thanks very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well out there. Hope you're really good stuff. And I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.